Welcome to the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Pluff. Each week, we will cover various topics that dads struggle with in their fitness journey. I'll give you actionable steps that you can apply right away, not only to take back control of your own health, but so you're able to be a better example for your kids too. To this week's episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Today, we have Kevin Thatcher with us. Kevin and I worked together back in April for about 3 months, and so it's been a little bit now since we've worked together. But Kevin had some pretty great results, so I'm pretty excited to have him on here today to kind of tell you about it. He's going to kind of share with us kind of what worked well for him, how he was able to kind of implement it into his own life, and then maybe a little bit about some of the things he's tried before. But before we dive into that, I'm going to have Kevin introduce himself, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Kevin Thatcher. I live in the middle of Michigan, locate underground utilities for a living, and been working out fairly consistently for a while, but not getting the results I wanted. So I asked Anthony to help me.
Awesome. So originally, I think we actually talked about 2 years ago. So I think we were in a Facebook group together or something. And then you joined my Facebook group at the time. Now it's called Fatherhood Fitness, but it used to be called something different at the time. And then we just started talking a little bit. I think we had a phone call. I think it was September of 2021. Now at that time, it wasn't the best time to get started, and that's okay. We kept in touch. And fast forward, almost 2 years later, you reached back out again, and we started working together in April. And before we kind of talk about your results, before we did start working together, what was kind of the problem you were having, and kind of how long had you been struggling with it?
Well, for at least 2 years, maybe 3 years now, I've been I wanted to bulk up a little, but I wanted to lose weight, lose my belly, but I wanted to gain muscle mass. And I was working out fairly consistently, but didn't seem to be getting anywhere with anything. And, so I needed help with that.
Yeah. That can definitely be frustrating for sure. Cause I know you were, you're pretty active on the job, and I know you were, working out already before. And so, what did that feel like? What did that feel like to kind of be putting in all that work there and, not really being rewarded for it?
It gets frustrating. And that's what's always happened before. I would work out, not see any results, so I just give up. And I wasn't giving up as easily this time or that time at the time, but I was frustrated because I was seeing no results.
Yeah. And I remember you. We were talking, and you were kind of saying like, you would put in the work. You would kind of put in the work there. You're working out 4 or 5 days a week. But you weren't kind of getting to where you want to. You kind of mentioned to me that, a lot of times that, you would kind of run through a drive-through at times and stuff, just on the job and stuff, something easy and stuff. And so, that was kind of one of your concerns, is kind of how do we fit, this into your lifestyle, right, with your work and everything. And so, we started working together in April, so that's already six months ago. What was different? What was different about, the Fatherhood Fit program? What was different about kind of the program kind of we put in place for you that, was a little bit different than what you've tried before?
It was just having somebody to keep me accountable, and just knowing that somebody else was seeing what I was doing helped me to start to keep my food under control better. And I needed something like that. I knew I needed something like that to keep me going.
Yeah. When did you kind of first realize, when we were working together, that, this is actually working, that, you're starting to see results, that this might have been, kind of that missing link you were looking for.
It had to be first couple weeks. I started seeing results in my weight loss, and that's the big thing. That's what a lot of people really want,
Mm-hmm.
is just to lose that weight,
Yeah.
and then you can start working on the other stuff. But if you don't get, I'm sorry,
That's
if
all
you
right.
don't get that under control, you're not gonna get the discipline in anything else, I don't think.
Yeah. 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 Now, yeah, you had, I mean, um, overall, I mean, you were very consistent with your workouts, right? I remember you telling me, we had a conversation on one of our calls, and you said, like, it didn't seem like too overwhelming. Like, it didn't seem like it was too much. You were able to kind of fit it in everything. And I know that was kind of one of the concerns too. Like, how do I make this work? And I remember we were having a conversation on one of our check-in calls, and you said, like, it doesn't feel like it's too much. And that, I think that's the sweet spot there, right? Something that's challenging you, right? That you gotta put forth the effort in order, to see the results, but also something that, more often than not, like, you're excited to do. You're not just dreading all day long. And so, I have written down. I was pretty proud of you for the work you put in. But do you know how much weight you lost off the top of your head?
Uh, Not completely. I know it was a little more than 20 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, so you actually lost 26 pounds in 12 weeks, which was
26,
awesome.
okay.
Yeah, so you went from 235 to 209, right? And I,
Yeah.
I remember, yeah, like you, I don't feel like you completely changed your life, like, as in a bad way, right? Obviously, you made positive changes that that are very good, but, like, it wasn't something that, was completely overwhelming. Just few small tweaks here and there. Like, you were already somebody who understood the importance of, working out. You understood, hard work. You're not going to get the results if you don't put the work in. And so that was never an issue. Like, I maybe zero. I don't remember many times where you ever missed a workout, right? Like, it's like you're getting them in. We had a check-in call every couple of weeks there. Like, you were consistent, and I think, I think that's one of the biggest things too. Is you were extremely coachable. You were extremely coachable, and at the beginning today, you mentioned about how you had tried to lose weight before, but you also wanted to bulk up. And I don't know if you remember this, but probably, I don't know, 8-10 weeks into the program, you had messaged me saying, like, hey, like, I'm thinking I want to make a shift here. I think I want to make a shift here, and kind of switch to kind of some muscle building and stuff. And that's completely normal. I think we had that conversation about sometimes we have this idea in our head, right? If we're somebody who's been a little bit stronger and you start slimming down, all of a sudden you look in the mirror, you look at your arms or something, you think, oh, I'm a little smaller than I was. And so, we just had a conversation about, like, that might have been something you had done in the past, right? Where you had, made progress for 6 or 8 weeks, and then also we're trying to switch gears here and stuff. And so, and we kind of talked about, this is your program, this is your life, it's your decision. But we kind of talked it through, that maybe the best approach would be to, stick it out, continue to cut a little bit longer, right? And ultimately, I think that was the best decision. 26 pounds in 12 weeks, like, that's incredible. That's incredible progress. Since we worked together, it's been about 3 months or so. What kind of progress have you made since then? What's kind of your fitness and nutrition kind of looked like since then?
I've fallen off the wagon.
Okay.
Not completely.
Okay.
I'm maintaining my weight,
Yeah.
um, but I haven't been doing the things that we were doing,
Yeah.
when you were helping me.
Okay.
And I'm maintaining, and that's about it. I
Yeah.
am I am feeling, with my working out,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I am feeling better as far as that goes.
Yeah.
I've been staying with the working out. It's the
Mhm.
eating again that's
Yeah.
I've I just need to get back on that, It's
Yeah.
like you say, you don't have to eat anything different. You can eat the things that you want. It's just you got to really control it. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And, I think one thing to kind of be proud of too is that, it has been 3 months since, we've worked together. So being able to maintain that progress for 3 months, that's huge. That's a huge win, right? A lot of
Yeah,
times what happens is, people lose weight and then they gain weight and then they lose weight and it gets really frustrating, right? You kind of fluctuate back and forth. And so the fact that you've been able to keep and maintain it off, that tells me you're applying what you're learning, right? You know what to do to maintain where you are, which is great. That's awesome. And so, a lot of times, people spend the entire year kind of going up and down, up and down, up and down. They never actually spend any amount of time at maintenance, and so maintenance feels weird for people. Maintenance is strange because, um, they're so used to trying to lose weight or trying to build muscle, and nobody, not a lot of people spend time at meet or tension or with, on purpose, right? They're not purposely trying to stay the same. And so I think that's really good. And it may be frustrating to kind of hang out there for a while, but, it'd be more frustrating if you started putting back on 10, 15. You know what I mean? And so
exactly.
I think that's really good. I know you have, a young daughter, and she's been doing Spartan races, right? And that was your goal to
Yeah.
kind of do some more Spartan races and stuff. So how has kind of, losing a little bit of weight there, working out consistently, improving, your nutrition. How has that kind of, impacted that?
Well, with the Spartan races, I don't train the way I should for Spartan races.
Mm-hmm.
And, building muscle and things like that, that's not going to help me there. So I know what I need to do. I
Mm-hmm.
just need to start doing it. As far as losing weight, you gave me the tools to know how to do that. It's on me to get myself to do it now.
Yeah.
And then with the Spartan races, I wasn't able to do one this year.
Okay.
So I'm hoping next year I'll start training the way actually need to
Yeah.
and get on that and finish one next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Your daughter does them, right?
Yeah, she's finished two of the kids' races now.
That's
She did
awesome.
one earlier this year and one last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Does she ever see you work out?
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
And she'll use the row machine sometimes, just playing around and riding
Yeah.
my bike and stuff. And I let her do that stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if
No,
it's just playing around, it's something.
yeah. No, that's awesome. Having let your daughter see you work out, you're taking care of yourself. Like, I think that's setting a great example. You may not have many conversations about it right now, right? But as she gets older, she's gonna look back and, think of that, dad was working out, and so, like, you doing your Spartan races makes her want to do it, right? And so it's kind of rubbing off on her. And so, you working out, you starting to, kind of focus on, the nutrition overall, just overall health too, not just weight loss, right? Like, initially, weight
Right.
loss is the goal, but, you also had, you wanted to get stronger, right? You wanted to get stronger. You wanted to be, in better shape overall. And so I think that's all working together there. And so I think that's setting a great example, for her as she's getting older. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I do talk to her about it sometimes. And I hope that she'll start like wanting to train. She doesn't train for her races, it's just the kids' races right now and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that I can get her to start wanting to train some things for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. And so, yeah, so you were working out 3 times a week, 3 times a week. focusing on like the nutrition, getting walks in, steps in. And that's ultimately kind of the pillars there of, my signature program, the Fatherhood Fit Method, simple workouts, right? They're not grueling. Obviously they're going to be challenging. Typically three workouts a week, trying to hit a step goal each day. And then the accountability and the support, I think is huge. And it's really just about fitting it in, around your schedule, right? So customizing it to make sure it works. So, but before we started working together, what kind of reservations did you have? What were you kind of not so sure about that? Maybe you thought, I'm not really sure if this is going to work for me.
Well, I've had so many struggles in the past trying to change things.
Mm-hmm.
I was just afraid that I would get into it and not want to do it, or do it for a couple of weeks like I've done other things, and just say, oh, this isn't working, I'm done,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't want that to happen, and I try not to let things like that happen anyhow. So yeah, that never happened. I just knowing that you were watching things, and watching my progress and things like that, just that stuff just helps.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you were, like I said earlier, like you were extremely coachable. I think that's the most important thing there. Like, obviously, like it's my job to help you get to where you want to be. But I can give you the tools, I can give you the support, I can give you everything you need to succeed. But if you're not willing to put in the work there, then ultimately you're not going to get those results that you want. So, what do you think? What do you think was kind of different about maybe having that belief in yourself, right? Because there were a couple times where you mentioned to me where you're not so quite sure on some things, but you kept showing up. You kept showing up. You never missed a call. You were always communicating with me, even on those days where maybe you weren't so proud about all the stuff you ate and everything. You still tracked it. You still told me about it. And so what was kind of that switch there that made you decide, I'm gonna stick with this. I'm gonna see it through.
I've been trying to change my mindset for the last couple years,
Mm-hmm.
and just my mindset of following through with things, staying, being more disciplined on things.
Mm-hmm.
I've always just kind of floated through.
Yeah.
And so when, when I asked you to help me and everything, I knew I didn't want to give up. And I knew having somebody along would help to keep me going. And sometimes maybe not everybody needs that. I definitely needed that to
Yeah.
get me going. And then
Yeah.
the way it's looking, maybe to keep me going.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, and I think that's an important thing to touch on there too. Is not um, not everybody needs help forever, right? But to get started, right? I've typically when I start working with a client, we either work together like me and you did for 12 weeks at a time, or we start off initially for 6 months. And I've had clients who after that they just keep making progress, right? I'm working with somebody currently, and I worked with somebody over the summer that I worked with 2 years ago, and they came back, and they different stage in their life, maybe more time or something like that. They reach back out and change it, which I think is awesome. I have some clients that I train in person. One of them we've been meeting for 3.5 years now, and it's like it's a lot of fun. Like everybody's different, right? I personally have hired coaches myself. Typically, when I hire them, I'll hire them for 12 weeks, right? It gives me a chance to kind of implement something new, learn from them, have that accountability, like you said, and then continue to make progress, right? And sometimes it takes more than 12 weeks, right? Sometimes it takes 6 months. Sometimes it could take a year. But I think like ultimately, you always had a really open mind. I remember every time we talked about it, like you had a goal, and I think you may correct me if I'm wrong, but when you had a goal that was lower than what you got to, but you understood that that's probably not going to happen in 12 weeks, right? And if you got there in 12 weeks, then it probably wasn't very sustainable, and it probably
Right.
wasn't it probably wasn't something that was going to last for very long. And so for somebody who's kind of on edge or kind of on the edge there to maybe sign up, what's some advice you would give them?
Uh, I would say do it. I mean, it helps so much just knowing that somebody's watching, somebody's there. Um, you have to go into it wanting to learn.
Mm,
And that's one thing that I wanted. That's something that you really helped me with was learning and getting on the right path to where I wanted to go. I knew I
mm,
might not get to my goal in 12 weeks. That wasn't
right.
really, I knew it would take longer. You
Mm,
helped me, especially to get to the point where, yeah, I'm not going to get there in 12 weeks, but if I keep doing this, I will get there eventually.
yeah. 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 And like I said, your work ethic, your coachability, like I ultimately that, that's what gave you the results. I'm just the guide along this, right? You're the one that's got to show up, right? When you don't want to work out, I can help motivate you, but you're ultimately the one that has to still put in the work, right? And so all the success you had, is you, right? You've proven yourself, you've proven to yourself that, you can do this. And, there's no doubt in my mind that, you're ultimately going to get to where you want to go, right? It's going to take some time, right? Um, could it take
When you
six
don't want to
months?
work out, those are the days you got to do it.
Yeah, yeah, right. It kind of building that kind of mental muscle there, right? It's you always feel better after. I say that, but sometimes you work out and you don't feel good after, but that happens, but yeah,
Usually you feel better for sure.
yeah, yeah. Usually, and you feel accomplished, right? You feel accomplished. You
Right.
feel
Yeah.
like And I think one of my I have no idea who said it. I mention it all the time, but one of my favorite quotes is. If you can start keeping the promises you make to yourself, you'll change your life, right? That's I think that's the hardest thing to do. But it's also the easiest way to change your life. If you just do what you say you're going to do, right? You have a list of things each day,
Right.
get those things done. You're gonna be pretty productive, and you're gonna look back in 3 months and 6 months and a year, and you're gonna make a ton of progress there. And so ultimately, I think that's what you did, right? And inside the app, we kind of have the checklist, right? The different habits, your nutrition, your workout, all the different things, and so you're just stacking those wins, right? You just continue
Right.
to add those wins each day, and so at the end of the month, you can look back and be like, I missed this workout on Thursday, but look at all these check boxes, look at all these things I've checked off. And I think that's really important too, is just kind of looking at the big picture there. Like obviously each individual day matters, but it's the collective, right? It's the collective that is going to ultimately kind of get you where you want to go. But no, I really enjoyed working with you, Kevin. Kevin is a member of my Facebook group, Fatherhood Fitness. That's how we met, is as far as I can remember. Right, it was a couple of years ago. He was
I think
he
so.
was
Yeah.
yeah, he was part of my group. I think we were a part of some other groups too and stuff. And so, if you're not a member of Fatherhood Fitness, the link is in the description of the show. You'll be able to click on that. But Kevin, like I said, I really enjoyed working with you. I've always enjoyed talking to you when we're having our check-in calls and kind of keep connecting and everything. Is there anything before I let you go here that you'd kind of like to leave us with? Any last piece of advice or anything?
If you're on the fence of having Anthony help you, sign up. It's worth it for sure. And thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, I appreciate your kind words and I appreciate your willingness to hop on here. This was Kevin's first podcast episode, so maybe we'll have to have him back sometime. But Kevin, like I said, I really enjoyed working with you, and I really appreciate you coming on today. And I think the listeners are going to get a lot of value out of this.
Thanks.
That concludes this episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Thank you for those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to listen. If you have any questions or comments or an idea for a topic for a future episode, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from you.